Hello, guys, hello, girls. Welcome to your review for this second trimester, in which we're going to be speaking about the Greeks, the Roman society, and precisely how the end of these societies is going to bring us all the way to the Middle Ages. For this video, you're going to require your history book, your history notebook, and some pens and markers. Why? Because I'm going to require from you a study guide. I need you to write a study guide in your notebooks and to deliver this as a homework. But do not worry, I will open this homework and explain it broadly in Teams. So just be sure to have these materials with you. The topics that we are going to be studying in this video are going to be social organization, the triangle that I have been telling you throughout the trimester that you need to know by heart, that you really need to memorize this triangle, the Greek society, myths and philosophy, and finally the Roman society. So basically we're studying social organization with the triangle. With myths and philosophy, we are studying how societies organize their way of thinking. And we are applying all this knowledge to study the Greek and Roman society. Well, let's start with our triangle. What is really important here is to notice the very first word that we have to the left, family. Family, as you can see here in the drawing, and mainly in this part here, family is a brick. A brick that is the main part of every single house in the world. Around the world, we have a lot of houses, and these houses are going to be societies. We have very different societies, big houses, small houses, big societies, and small societies. But what they all have in common, every single society in the world and throughout history, is that all societies are made from bricks. They are made from families. Now, what changes is the way in which these societies add up, how they organize between them, and that is what we are going to see. So, first of all, we have several types of families. The first very simple type is monogamy, where you basically have two people marrying to each other and those people are going to have children, right? So in this case, we see in blue a man, in pink a woman, and they are going to get married. This line that is uniting the two figures from the lower part, this means marriage, and this line here that is going up and down means that they are going to have descendants, and this line that is uniting the figures not from below, as in this case, but from above, means that these two individuals are brothers. So basically we see that two people are married, a man and a woman, they have descendants, and that these two descendants are brothers, right? A son and a daughter in this case. So that is monogamy. Monogamy means two people get married, basically. That is the basic idea. Two people get married. But monogamy is not the only way that we have to form family. We also have in history and in other societies, and some societies closer to us than what you think. So these other societies do not practice monogamy. They practice polygamy. What is polygamy? Well, polygamy basically means that more than two people are implied in the marriage. For example, here in polygyny, we have one man, and remember that when the figures are joined from the lower part, this means that they are married. So this man is married here with three women. With three women. So they are going to have children, again, a son and a daughter, but this man is married to three women, and these three women are the mothers of these two individuals. Of course, that doesn't mean that they were born from these three women. It means that the three women are going to act the role of mothers in this family. But we do not only have polygyny. Remember, polygyny means more than one woman involved in the marriage. So basically, several women involved in the marriage. We also have polyandry. And in this case, the roles are just the opposite. If you pay attention, we have one woman married to several men. This woman is married to 3 men. So the relation is exactly the opposite. And of course, again, we have descendants, a son and a daughter. And these 3 guys are going to act as the fathers of these descendants. It doesn't matter if only one of them or 2 of them are the biological parents. The 3 of them are going to act as fathers. Why? Because this is something important. Family is much less about biology than it is about social relations. Family is all about social relations. And remember what we saw when we studied this. An adoption is exactly the same as having a biological child. An adoptive child is as much a son as a biological son. There is no difference, absolutely no difference. So what is a family? Let's go to a definition that we can work with. A family is a group of individuals joined by kinship relations. And this is the most important part. They are not just individuals, they have social relations in between them, joining them together. And these social relations are the things that are going to make family the smallest thing that we study in social sciences. Why? Because without these relations, then we only have individuals. And social sciences are not sciences of the individual, like maybe psychology is. Social sciences are sciences of the group, of societies. So the smallest thing that we can have is a family. Why? Because it is the smallest thing where we can actually have social relations. And those social relations within the family are going to be kinship relations. Kinship again refers to this idea of family. So again, a family is a bunch of individuals joined by family relations, right? But what are these kinship relations? Well, basically we have 3 or 4, right? It depends how you see affinity. Sometimes affinity includes more than just one thing. So, consanguinity. What is consanguinity? That means that you share blood, basically. Very simple. For example, you and a biological brother, you share blood. You and your mother, if she is a biological mother, you share blood. You and your father, if he is a biological father, then you share blood. But this is actually the only relation within kinship that is related to biology. The other 3 relations are absolutely not related to biology at all. Filiation. What is filiation? Filiation means that you recognize someone as a son or a daughter. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a blood relation with them, a biological relation. This son can be adopted, and in a monogamic family like this one, maybe this girl is adopted, and that doesn't matter. This line going down means that there is a relation of filiation with these 2 individuals here. They are the parents of this girl, even if she was adopted. That really doesn't matter. Or maybe here, in this case, these individuals obviously couldn't come from 3 different mothers. Maybe they both came from only this mother, or maybe each of them came from a different mother. But even in that case, this 3rd woman is going to act as a mother. So the filiation includes this idea. It doesn't matter if there isn't a biological relation here. Family is not about biology. Only one of the relations of family implies biology, and you can absolutely have a family without that. The 3rd one, affinity. Affinity is, for example, you get married with someone and his or her brother is going to be part of your family by affinity. So the family of the person that you are marrying is going to be a part of your family now. So you are family by affinity. Yes? I am sure, for example, that you have an aunt or an uncle that is your aunt or your uncle because he or she got married with your blood aunt and or uncle. I mean, she got married or he got married with the brother of your father or with the sister of your father, and thus they are your family by affinity. And finally, marriage. This is quite a simple one, right? You can form a family with someone by getting married with that person. So, what is the point of a family? Well, the point of a family, and here it says very clearly, more than reproducing society in terms of individuals. So, the point of family is to give birth to new individuals? Well, yes, maybe. But more than that, the point of families is to reproduce the society in cultural terms. What does that mean? That the point of a family is to teach the new generations the particular culture of their society. That is the point of a family, to teach them, for example, values, for example, language, for example, how to cook, how to dress, imposing or teaching the culture of the particular society in which they live into the new generation. That is the actual point of a family. Now, we should not confuse family with a unit of residence, because in a unit of residence you can have several people living together, but the point is not to reproduce society in a cultural way. The point is just to work together because you cannot cope with the economic situation by your own. So, for example, the people that nowadays live with roommates, well, they are not a family, right? Not just because you live together, you become a family. In these cases, we have a different word, and that is a domestic unit. A domestic unit implies that you're going to be living together, for example, to cope with, and actually mainly to cope with economy, because you cannot be self sufficient without the help of others, and you become a domestic unit. And that is not a family. The main purpose of a family is going to be to reproduce society in terms of culture, to teach culture to the new generations. And that implies a lot of things, again, values, uses, customs, and so on. Now, let's see some pictures about monogamy and polygamy. Well, monogamy looks pretty familiar to us, right? This is how we, and not everyone in our society, but yes, how we usually think about families, right? A dad, a mom, and children. But it will be very surprising for you to see this. This is a polygenic family. That means that this is a family in which the father is married to several women. And they don't look very different to us, right? Well, that is because a certain religion, that are the Mormons, they are allowed to marry several women. So we're not only speaking about the Middle East here, we're not only speaking about Africa and those very far away countries in which polygyny is actually a thing. In our own society, living among us, Mormons are allowed to marry several women. Now, this is changing nowadays because people and societies were rejecting Mormons due to this custom. So they are changing these uses. They are changing the fact that they marry several women, but well, they are allowed. Like in their religion, they can do it. They are not really doing it so much anymore, but they can. An example of polyandry, Tibet. Tibet is one of the classical examples of polyandry. Other examples would be the classic Hawaiian system was reported to be like this, and also the Yatmul, no, not the Yatmul, a northern tribe in America. And also the Inuits. The Inuits that are what we call Eskimos, right? They also practice polyandry. or used to practice. And well, nowadays we have, of course, new ways in which people is forming families, and this is very important because previously this was very important, the part of having children. But nowadays, Mexican law actually states that it is anti constitutional to consider that the point of family is to have children. It is stated in the law. It is unconstitutional to consider that the point of family is to have offspring, to have children. You can be married, and that is a family. So that is nowadays in Mexican law. So that is very interesting, right? Because now you are not imposing nor teaching the culture of your society to a new generation, but you are still replying and replicating the patterns of your culture in your own way. So we have several types of monogamic families now. We have again here polygyny, polyandry, and this new way of marriage or of living together that we are seeing nowadays, that is being called polyamory, in which basically, well, a bunch of people can form a family and be, well, a couple is not the right name because they are not two people, but a bunch of people can form a family, like get married between them. So it is not quite polyandry, it is not quite polygyny because several men and several women can be involved. They just call it polyamory. So basically, those are different types of families that we can find in the world. So now let's move to our next way of organization, the horde. What is a horde? Well, the horde or band, you can find both names. They are synonyms. In this case, they are synonyms. They are basically a bunch of families working together for survival. And they are hunter gatherers. In this case, it is very important to say that they are transhuman. If you remember, the difference between transhumans and nomadism is that transhumans implies moving around due to survival. You're basically trying to get resources. So if in a certain point where you are living, resources are limited or they suddenly end, then you need to move to another place trying to get those resources that you need in order to live. And in nomadism, that is not really the case. In nomadism, you are moving around and changing places because that is part of your culture, that is part of your tradition, but you are not really being moved by survival. And this also, as a very important part of it, they do not have agriculture. What does that mean? Well, that they do not grow their own crops. That is why they need to hunt and to gather for food. So they hunt and they gather things from nature to live. I know that they look like cavemen, but that is just a drawing. In here you have an actual picture of a Tanzanian tribe that are still hunter-gatherers. So they still exist nowadays. And they are as much a society as we are. So basically this is the idea, right? A bunch of families help each other in order to survive. Now, they are usually very small, around 50 individuals per band, hardly up to 100, usually not that big. Why? Well, because of course, the point here is to have more individuals in order to help each other. That is why you have a group of families working together. Maybe if you want to hunt, it is useful to have more people. If another band or horde is coming to attack you in order to get your resources, it is a good idea, obviously, to have more people to fight with you, not against you, with you. But, well, your access to resources is pretty limited. So even if it is a good idea to have more people to help you fight, to help you hunt, to help you gather, the amount of resources that you have and that you can get through collecting, through gathering, and through hunting or fishing is pretty limited. So you really cannot keep so many people alive. That is the problem. The limit here is are the resources. So as you are not really going to have so much resources, you basically cannot have so many people in your band. So that is why they are very small societies. Now, and this is very important. The horde, is the first actual society that exists. I mean, the smallest one. A family, even if a family is the basis and the brick making up every single house and making up every single society, a family will never be a society. It is implied in every single type of society that we have, but a family on its own is not a society. We need at least several families working together, so that's a horde, in order to call this a society. The next way of organization, the clan. What is a clan? Well, in here things start to get interesting. A clan basically works with the idea of common ancestry. What is common ancestry? Well, that you believe, that you state that a bunch of people, and in this case a bunch of families, come from a common ancestor. This means that they are all the descendants of the same person, but in this case it is not quite a person. When we are speaking about the clan, we are not speaking about a real person. The main characteristic of a clan is that this common ancestor is not real. It may very well be a god, for example, Ragnar Lothbrok. If you saw Vikings, he believed that his family and his clan were descendants of the god Odin. And of course, the god Odin didn't ever exist, right? So this couldn't be the case. Maybe it is an element from nature: water, earth, fire. We are all descendants of fire, right? A planet or a star, we are all descendants of the sun. In this clan, we are the descendants of the sun, and in that clan, they are the descendants of the moon. For example, an animal, it may be an eagle, a turtle, an owl, a lizard, or even a cardinal direction. This is interesting. In North American tribes, they do have as the main totemic elements directions such as north, south, east, west, center, up, down. So the idea is basically this one. You have this bunch of families, and they are going to consider that they all descend, in this case, from the common ancestor, our totem, the turtle. So as you can see here, all the men, because this is going to be a patriarchal society, right? Or at least a patrilineage that we have seen in class, but we are going to explain further on what is a patrilineage. Um, these clans, these patrilineal clans, descend from the turtle. Why patrilineal? Well, because the line that is going to bring us to the turtle is carried by men, right? But if you pay attention, there is not so much difference between this, that is a horde, and this, that is a clan. Basically, the difference is that they have this belief in common ancestry. Now, the size is also going to be a difference. A clan can be way bigger than a horde. A clan may be 10 times bigger than a horde, or so on. In this case, the the resources are not going to be such a problem. Why? Because, well, if you're joined by this common ancestry, even if it is mythological, you're basically brothers, right? So if they need help, other people may help them, other parts of the clan may help. So the resources are not going to be so problematic. They don't need to move around together in order to hunt and to gather. Maybe one of them lives in one side, the other one lives in another side, and so on. But they can help each other because now they are joined by sacred kinship, right? By a mythological kinship relation that unites them to the turtle, the common ancestor. Now, here you have a very nice picture of this belief in totems that are basically, well, the animals or the common ancestors of a clan. In this case, I think this is an owl. So this basically this clan is saying we are descendants of the owl. And in here you see like a history of descendants that come from the owl. But the most important ancestor, the common ancestor, would be the owl. Now, the next way of organization, a phratry. What is a phratry? This one is quite easy. A phratry is a group of clans that make an alliance between them and this alliance is clearly distinctive. So for example, in here, this is like a red owl, right? And this is the famous clan of the turtle. So they are going to form an alliance so that imagine that the white owl attacks them. Well, they are going to fight together in order to defeat the white owl. And if the clan of the eagle attacks them, well, they're going to fight together against the clan of the eagle. So they are allies. The whole society, I mean, all the clans that live in this region, let's call it like that, they will be able to know that these two clans are allies. That is what forming a distinctive unit means. That everybody knows that these two clans are allies. Okay? Next way of organization, a tribe or a chiefdom. Things get interesting and serious here. What is a tribe? Well, a tribe is a social group made up of clans and lineages. So we already know what is a clan, right? Here you have it. Families joined together by the idea of common ancestry. But a tribe does not only imply that there are several clans that belong to a same society, that identify themselves as being part of one same society, of a broader social group, but it also requires lineages. And the lineages, pay attention to this, the lineages are inside the clans. So the clans are bigger than the lineages. So what is a lineage? Well, a lineage also implies the notion of common ancestry. So a lineage is also based on the idea that they share an ancestor, that they descend from someone. But in this case, a lineage implies that this common ancestor is actually a real person. And you can trace this person through a family line. For example, and this is important, usually a lineage means that you have at least 5 generations. So let's pay attention here to this guy of the 5th generation. Well, he is a descendant of this guy. And we can trace his relation to this guy following a family line. So just following the line that goes from father to father, so again a patrilineage, you can reach this real person that is the ancestor of this guy. And we have how many generations? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why 5 generations? Well, because less than 5 generations is not really a lineage, it is just a family. For example, imagine if you have less than 5 generations, then you have the great grandfather, the grandfather, the father, and the son. Those are 4 generations, right? Just 4. So that is not quite a lineage. Actually, when I was your age, I used to go to church, and my best friend would go to church with her grandmother, well, her great grandmother, her mother, and of course, she would also attend Mass. She would also go to church. So that wasn't a lineage, that just was an extended family, right? A big family. But if you have another generation, a great great grandfather, and then the great grandfather, and then the grandfather, and then the father, and then the son, that may be considered a lineage. Also, something very important here, before we get into this last point. Something very important here. Well, you can see that these two people get married, and they have as children this guy and this girl. And this guy is getting married with this girl. So we may ask ourselves, where did this girl come from? Where did we get this woman from? And the answer to this question is actually very, very important when we are thinking about tribes. Why? Because let me just erase this and make the picture, like zoom out the picture. There. Well, we may think when we see this picture, this representation of a tribe, where we have three clans: the clan of the red owl, the clan of the turtle, and the clan of the white owl. We may think that they are like independent clans that have lineages inside them, right? Basically, we can see three lineages inside of each one of these clans. But that is not quite true. Because again, where is that woman? Where did we get that woman? Well, that woman basically is this daughter here that is, that woman is that woman here that is not getting married, right? You see that there is a sister there that is not getting married. So where did we get this woman that is getting married? Well, she is this sister here that we can see in that part that is not married, but obviously is married in this side. So where did we get this woman here? Well, she's the sister here that we can see. In this case, she would be marrying the same family, right? Well, the same clan. It is this woman here that we can see that didn't get married. Where did we get this woman? Well, it is this woman here that in there we see as if she weren't married, but she is married in this clan. Where did we get this woman here? Well, she comes from here. Where did we get this woman here? Well, she gets from here, and so on. So if you pay attention, basically, the whole tribe is united through family laces, through family relations. So do not think of a tribe as just these independent clans that have lineages. They are related. They definitely have relations between them. The tribe is a unit. So the last very important characteristic of a tribe is that they have no leader. That means that the authority depends on the activity that is being carried out. For example, if I want to hunt, who is going to be the leader of my hunting party? Well, the hunter that has the most experience, or the best hunter. We have a great hunter in our tribe, so he is going to be the leader in our hunting party. But once the hunt is over, he loses his authority and he goes back to being just the same as everybody else. Or for example, we are growing crops. Who is going to be the leader of the activity? Well, the one that knows agriculture the best. But once we finish cropping, he loses his authority. So there is no leadership, at least no stable leadership. And that is basically the only difference with the chiefdom. That is why we usually place them together, tribe or chiefdom. Because a tribe and a chiefdom imply basically the same things: social group made up of clans and lineages, lineage being this common ancestor that is a real person that we can trace through a family line, and that lineage implies at least 5 generations. The difference is that the chiefdom has a leader. A chiefdom has a leader, a tribal chief. So let's say this guy from the clan of the turtle is going to be the leader of the whole tribe. And he is a permanent leader. Unless they don't like what he's doing anymore, or he becomes too old, too weak, whatever, they can replace him. But there is going to be a chief, a tribal chief, a tribal leader. That is why this is called a chiefdom. But in terms of the elements that this society comprises, it is basically the same as a tribe: clans and lineages. Now, next way of organization, tribal confederacy. This one is important and you already know why. A tribal confederacy is basically an alliance between tribes in order to reach or to achieve a goal. And this goal usually is to become stronger for war. It is to face an enemy and to be strong enough to defeat this enemy. So, in order to carry out this goal, tribes are going to choose a temporary leader. This means that the leader is not going to be permanent. They are just going to be leaders while they reach the goal that they want to reach, until they accomplish what they wanted originally and the reason why they joined as a tribal confederacy. Once they, for example, win the war or lose the war, then this tribal leader, this leader of a tribal confederacy, is going to lose the authority and they're going to go back to being independent tribes. So in here we have the green tribe, for example, that is comprised of the eagle clan, the clan of the flying face, I don't know, and the clan of the Ayuwoki, right? This totem looks like the Ayuwoki. So the clan of the Ayuwoki, the clan of the flying face, and the clan of the eagle make up the green tribe. And the clan of the red owl, the clan of the turtle, and the clan of the white owl make up the purple tribe. And they're going to make an alliance. They're going to become a tribal confederacy in order to defeat some other enemy. And they're going to choose, say, this guy to be the leader of the tribal confederacy. And while they fight this common foe, while they fight this common enemy, they will all obey and they will all follow the instructions of this guy. Why did they choose this guy? Well, maybe he is the greatest warrior, maybe he is the son of a rich guy, who knows? But he's only going to keep his authority while they achieve their goal. Once the goal is achieved, he loses his authority. Finally, the Mr. State, right? The most powerful way of organization. So what is the state? Well, you already know the state too well. The state with capital S, remember that it is different, even in Spanish. Estado with a capital E is not the same as Estado with a small case E. So it is a way of social and political organization. So it is a way in which a society is organizing itself. That implies, well, you already know this. The power is exercised from a center of power. There is a centralized exercise of power. We have stable institutions. And where is or who is going to exercise this power? But well, basically these institutions. For example, the army, the church, the state itself, and I mean the civil part of the state. All those are stable institutions. And when we are speaking about ancient states, the army and the church are a very important part of the state. That is why it is so interesting and so important when the countries decided that the state and the church should spread apart and that state and church should not be related, because in history the church was a big part of the state. So that is part of the stable institutions too. The most important one, remember, monopoly over the use of legitimate violence. What does that mean? Well, legitimate violence means that it is legal to exercise violence, and monopoly means that you are the only one that can do it. So basically, only the state can decide when and how violence is legal, and they are the only ones that can basically exercise it in every single possible way. Think about a protest. The state can legally send policemen to use force in order to dissolve the protest. It is a capacity of the state. They can do it. They have the monopoly over the use of legitimate violence. They can use violence against their population in order to keep them in order. Finally, there is a bureaucracy, or at least a social class, devoted to the management or administrative tasks of the state. So again, imagine you are collecting taxes for the state. Well, who is going to collect the taxes? How are you going to know who paid you and who hasn't paid you? How are you going to know how much are they paying you or how much they are not paying you? So you need basically people working for the state, right? A whole social class that is devoted to these administrative tasks. And this implies basically writing, but in some societies we do not have writing. For example, the Incas in South America, they didn't have a writing system, but they had a way of keeping records using threads and knots. So, whatever media you can use in order to keep track of the administrative processes of the state, that is good enough. And remember, these are the characteristics that we get from Max Weber. Now, before we get to the characteristics told by Machiavelli, here we have a representation of a state. Well, first of all, of course, the start is the centralized authority, the centralized power. This guy is the ruler. And they all the clans, are revolving around the central leader. Of course, nowadays, we in Mexico, we live in a state and we do not have clans, right? But in ancient societies, living in a state does not imply that you stop being a clan. The centralized power can rule over clans, can rule over tribes, and so on. So, for example, what would the centralized power do if the Eagle clan suddenly decides that he doesn't want to be a part of this state anymore? Well, this is not as easy as we would see here in the Tribal Confederacy. Well, thank you very much. We have lost or won the war. See you. Bye bye. We are going to go back to being independent tribes. No. If we're speaking about the state, this centralized power can use force to avoid this clan from living. They can say, no, you are under my power and you are going absolutely nowhere and you have to pay taxes. End of the story. You don't want to? Okay, speak to the police. Bye. Right? They can use violence to keep the power here. And basically everything inside this rectangle is the extent of the power of this central authority. They can exercise absolutely every single bit of power within the extent of this rectangle. So remember, what is Machiavelli telling us? The state is thus as strong as its central power. So if the prince, that remember that for Machiavelli the prince is the ruler, if the prince is weak, then the state is going to be weak. But if the prince is strong, then the state is going to be strong. Why? Because the state is only as powerful as its central authority, as its central power. So if this guy over here is not very strong, well, yes, maybe the eagle can live and it is not going to be a part of this state anymore. But only if this star is strong enough, he's going to keep all the parts of the society together and he is going to rule them beyond any limitations. The point, remember, according to Machiavelli, the ruler, his purpose is to keep the state together or even to make it grow. So he has to be powerful enough to rule over all the leaders of these clans. He needs to be more powerful than any other local authority, or he is not going to be able to rule over them. And in order to be stronger than the rest of them, he can use violence. It is the right of the state. Now, before we move to the last part that I want to see with you in this section about social organization, I just want to discuss something very simple but very interesting with you that was developed or discovered during the 19th century. You know, this 19th century and all its implications. There was this very important theorist. Actually, he was even an influence for Charles Darwin. His name was Herbert Spencer, and he was saying that societies grow as they add more individuals. But another guy called McLennan, he was a bit smarter and he said no. Societies do not grow as we add individuals. Societies grow as we add families. The unit of a society is a family. So it is going to grow as it gets more and more families. Not individuals, families. Family is the deal of a society. Okay? So, how are societies growing? By adding individuals? No, no. By adding families. Right? By creating and reproducing more families is that the society may grow. So, in the end, for McLennan, a society is the aggregation of families. Every single society is the aggregation of families. And we have seen how that is absolutely true. Now, the last topic that I want to see with you, the state and the city. I have told you this several times in class. The state, as a way of organization, will almost always, if not always, come with the city as a way of establishing a settlement, as a settlement pattern. Well, why? Well, look at these pictures of ancient societies. These pictures are from the first states in history. These pictures come from Sumer, from Babylon, the first states in history, between the Tigris and the Euphrates River, right? So, do you think that it was easy to build this amount of buildings? Do you think it was easy to build this huge ziggurat? And I want you to remember this because I know that I am in a literature class on Fridays, and this is a big topic, the ziggurat. A ziggurat is basically the temple that they have in Mesopotamia. So, for example, the Tower of Babel was a ziggurat, was the ziggurat that they were building in Babylon. That is the origin of the mythological Tower of Babel. It was the ziggurat of Babylon. So, do you think that it is easy to build these huge structures and to build this many buildings? Well, it is not. But also, why would you need so many houses if you don't have a lot of people there? So, in order to explain this relation between the state and the city, I would like to use, well, basically this circle here between three elements: population, organization, and production. Why? Well, because you require a lot of population to build something like this, right? You need labor power, you need people doing things, and of course, well, that is part of organization. You need that some people are able to grow crops so that they can feed the people that are actually working here, because the people that work here cannot grow crops. They are occupied doing other things, building the great ziggurat for the gods, right? So you require social organization in order to organize that some people work in the fields while other people can work in construction, for example. But also you require, well, yes, organization for production. Why? Because if you need a lot of population to do this, well, all these people need to eat, right? So you need to organize production so that you can have enough food for all these people. And this is basically a cycle. You need organization to organize your population in order to build your city, but you need to build your city because you have a lot of population, so it goes both ways. And your population needs food, so that means that you need population, people working in the fields that need to be organized, and the products that you are producing, well, you need to divide them among your population, and for that you need organization. You need to say, okay, this guy is going to get 10 kilos of corn, and this other guy is going to get 10 kilos of carrots. So basically, the relation between the state and the city, I would summarize it, I personally would summarize it like this: a relation between population, organization, and production. Why? Because a city implies a lot of people. How do you organize a lot of people? Well, the most powerful way of organization in history is the state, all right? So it is only logical that these many people get organized through a state and through taxes and so on. And in order to keep them alive, well, you need some production, so you need to set them into motion, right? You you need to put them to work, and you need to administrate or to manage their production and so on. It is a cycle. But that is basically why the state and the city will usually come together, because a city implies a lot of people, and a lot of people require a lot of organization, and the most powerful way of organization is the state. So it is very difficult for societies that are not states to be able to manage a society. How are you going to organize yourself in order to keep this in order? Right? Imagine this would fall into chaos if you don't have a leader here, if you don't have leadership. So basically, they are deeply related. Please pause this video and go to the description section of this video so that you can hit in the first link and solve a pop quiz in order to see how well you understood these concepts. Do not forget to make a study guide with this video so that, this is going to actually be an activity that I am going to grade. So it is good for you. You have to do it, you study for your exam, and also you get an extra grade for your average. See you in the Greek society. Okay, boys and girls, I hope that you did great in your mock test, and if you didn't, well, try again. I am sure that this will help you a lot to achieve the best possible results for your exam. Now, I know that this first part was a bit long, right? But it is the theoretical background that we need in order to analyze the two societies that we are analyzing this trimester. Well, actually, we are analyzing more than two, but we can summarize them as the Greeks and the Romans. This trimester, again, we are studying the way of organization, the social organization, in the sense of how a society is organizing the people that live within it. How are families, that is this basic unit, organizing within the society that they live in. The other part that we are studying is how they organize their thinking, how a society is going to be producing a particular way of thought, a particular way of explaining reality, a particular way of explaining its own existence. So for that, the Greeks, of course, are going to be great. So let's start with this first group of societies that we are studying as the Greeks. Well, first let's focus ourselves in the map and remember that we are basically going to be studying all the societies that developed around this sea, the great Mediterranean Sea. So we are going to study the Romans starting here in Italy and spreading all around the Mediterranean Sea. But now we're going to study the Greeks that developed here, of course in Greece. And well, they also had colonies in Italy and in Sicily, but mainly the Greeks are going to develop around the Aegean Sea. This sea that we have over here, let me mark it with a color so that you can see it more clearly. This is the Aegean Sea. I know that maybe you cannot read it so clearly, but here it says Aegean Sea. Aegean Sea. And thus we're going to study these first societies that we are going to call the Aegean societies. Why? Because they are the societies that developed around this sea, in the borders of this sea, in the surroundings of this Aegean Sea. So, well, first let's start to consider all the, really go back in history and think about the first people that lived in this territory. If we see this map, we can see that it is divided between several big groups. All the way here in Europe, that are all these regions colored in green, it says here WHG. What does WHG mean? It means Western hunter gatherers, or the hunter gatherers of the West. The West is this cardinal direction that we could say usually in maps is the one pointing left. And for example, here in red, we have the Eastern hunter gatherers. So basically, in maps, usually the east is to the right. This is not necessarily always the case, but usually, yes. So, if we're studying these societies here in Greece, we are basically speaking about the Western hunter gatherers. So we have studied what are these type of societies known as hunter-gatherers, right? There are people with no agriculture that basically are organized in which way? You tell me. This is going to be like watching Lola la Exploradora, right? You tell me. Which is the way of organization in which hunter-gatherers usually organize themselves? Yes, the horde. I also think that. Right? So, yes, they're going to be hordes. That means that they are basically a bunch of families living together and, well, participating together in activities that will allow them to survive. For example, here the men are clearly going to hunt in order to get food. Now, this is the Stone Age. What is the meaning of the Stone Age? Well, the Stone Age is the age in which the tools were basically made out of stone. So we still do not have metal work in this period. The tools are basically made out of stone, 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 stone. Right? So that is why it is called the Stone Age. And these are the first groups that settled in Europe. And you can see that we are basically speaking about the 7000 before Christ. So 9,000 years ago. This is really a long time. But as societies developed in these territories, we're going to enter 3,500 years after this. We're going to enter the Bronze Age. What is the Bronze Age? The Bronze Age is precisely the period in which societies are going to be using metal. Their tools are going to be made up of metal, but this metal is going to be bronze. So what is bronze? If you remember, we saw in class that bronze is this mixture between copper and tin. And actually, these societies are very important because they are exploiting tin out of the soil, and they are commercing with this mineral that is very important in order to make bronze. So we're going to study these Aegean societies. Remember that they are Aegean societies because they developed around this sea that borders with the Mediterranean Sea, that is the Aegean Sea. Now, the first group that we studied actually were the Minoans. The Minoans, if you remember, were very famous due to the palaces that they built, and mainly the place where they lived is this very big island south of mainland Greece known as Crete. In Crete, archaeologists found this Knossos Palace, and it is a great palace. So think about it. If you have a palace, that means that you have a government, right? But it also implies that you have a central government. It also implies that this first Aegean society, the Minoans, have a central power, that the exercise of power is centralized here, and that basically the place in which rulers used to live was this palace. So, what type of organization do you think that they have if we have central authority? Yes, we are basically speaking about the state. So we can see how 3,500 years after the first hunter gatherers installed themselves in these lands, societies are going to develop from the basic way of organization, that is the horde, all the way to the most developed way of organization, that is the state. we're going from pole to pole, from the hearth to the state. Now, you can review and you can remember what we read about the Minoans if you go to your book in page 208 and 209. But basically, well, the Minoans were this society that, obviously, if they are living in an island, their power is going to be based on their navy and how they can use their navy not only to fight but also to commerce. So basically, we have three agent societies. Your book only speaks about two of them. The society that your book is not speaking about are these small islands over here that are called the Cyclabis Islands. And in here, we also have a very important society developing. However, the Minoans living in Crete are going to develop their great sea empire and are going to conquer the Cyclabes. So now not only Crete but also these small islands here are going to be under the control of the Minoans. So far we have one state ruling, right? The Minoans. And we can see, and the archaeological evidence shows us that we actually have a lot of reference about bulls. And we will come back to this when we study philosophy and myths, because remember that this relation to bulls and also the fact that they found a maze underneath this palace is going to make some people relate the palace of Knossos to the legendary palace of King Minos and the Minotaur, the myth of the Minotaur, right? So what is going to happen after the Minoans develop this great empire in the seas? Well, some new people are going to come to live to mainland Greece. Mainland Greece is this part that is stick to the continent, right? We were speaking about these islands, that this is Crete, this is where the Palace of Knossos is found. Then we were speaking about the Cyclades Islands, but the new group comes to settle here in the mainland Greece, in the part of the land that is stick to the continent, to what we nowadays call Greece. And this group is going to be called the Mycenians. So, as part of the Aegean Society, the Mycenians, and they are also part of the Bronze Age. This is a very nice piece of gold that is supposed to be part of the funerary offerings of a ruler, of a leader. But they really do not know who he was. However, this clearly speaks about the society. They have leaders, right? They basically have a ruler that will be related to this mask. But also something very important, and I love this picture. This is a bronze armor. This is the type of armor that Mycenaean soldiers would wear to protect themselves during battle. So this means that you have a professional army, right? And that this army is basically an unstable institution. So if you have stable institutions and you have this centralized power, this leader, this ruler, then what is the type of organization that this society is having? Well, of course, the state. Stable institutions, if you remember, and centralized power are both characteristics of the state. Now, we read about the Mycenaean Society in your book in pages 210 and 211, in case you want to go back to those pages and refresh your memory a bit. In summarizing, this society is going to be a warrior society. And in the top of the social organization are going to be the soldiers. The soldiers are going to be some of the most important elements of this society. And the production of the other levels of society is going to be managed by the state. Remember that one of the main functions of the state is to manage the production. Well, it's going to be directed to supporting the soldiers and to supporting the army. Now, the Mycenians were great warriors and they were able to conquer the Minoans. They went to war for a long period of time, and finally they are able to conquer the Minoans. However, this didn't last long. It is around 100 years that the Mycenians can enjoy the complete um, control of the whole region when they disappear. And there are theories telling us why they may have disappeared. The first one is related to climate change, to not having enough production to keep your society running. And also, there is a theory that is speaking about war, that sea peoples that are basically some tribes that are going to be fighting all the Bronze Age societies, including the Egyptians, the Hittites. They are also going to be fighting the Mycenians, so maybe they were defeated by these sea people. We really don't know. What we know is that the Mycenians only enjoyed the control of the region for very few time. And after that, well, we're going to have a long period in which basically we do not have any major societies in the region until the Iron Age. What is the Iron Age? Well, if the Stone Age is the period of history in which the societies are using tools made out of stone, the Bronze Age is the period of history in which societies are using tools made out of bronze. Well, the Iron Age obviously is the period of history in which societies are using tools made out of iron. So, what is going to happen during this Iron Age in Greece? Well, we are going to have the entry of new groups from the north into this territory. And they are the Greek tribes. They are going to come from the north and they are going to enter Greece. And we have basically the names of the most important tribes that are going to be entering this region. The Dorians, and you can see that we have Dorians here and we have also Dorians here. The Ionians, and we have Ionians here, and we also have Ionians here, and we also have Dorians here in Crete. The Eloians, and we are going to have Eloians here and here. And finally, the Achaeans, and this map doesn't show the Achaeans, but they were basically living in this region of Asia. They go all the way to this region of Asia, Asia Minor. So these Greek tribes are very important because they are going to become the Greeks that you know about. These Greeks that we were speaking about, the Mycenians, the Minoans, are not really societies that you usually hear of. But you really know about these Greek tribes. They are really the famous Greeks. The Dorians are a group of tribes that, when united, remember, how is a state going to be formed? Well, when several tribes, or at least two tribes, join together under common permanent leadership. So once the Dorians join together under common leadership in a permanent way, they are going to become Spartan. And they are basically, another name for them could be the tribes of the Peloponnesus. Then we have the Ionians. And the Ionians, when all the Ionian tribes unite together under common leadership, they are going to become Athens. Now, they are also called the Attic tribes. Why? Why did we say the Peloponnesian tribes and the Attic tribes? Well, this region of Greece here, this that seems like a blob that says Dorian, this region of Greece is called the Peloponnesus. So the Peloponnesian tribes are basically the tribes living in this region. And we can call the Attic tribes because this region, precisely where Athens was found, this is called the Attic region in Greece. So when the Attic tribes unite together, then Athens is going to start, and when the Peloponnesian tribes unite together, then Sparta is going to start as states. So they are going to be the most important ones, right? And remember, what we are seeing here then is how tribes are becoming states. But if you remember, in the last part of the first part of this video, in the last minutes, we were speaking about the relation between the city and the state. And usually, when we're speaking about Greeks, We speak about city states. However, historians and researchers have already rejected this term. It is not a correct term anymore to say city states. Why? Because this gives you the false illusion that one state is ruling over one city, a relation of one on one, and that is not true. One state can rule over several cities. So the correct word to refer to this in the case of Greece is polis, the Greek polis, and this is implying the state organization that can rule over one or more cities when speaking about Greece. So remember, leave behind that notion of city state. It is not accurate. It has never been accurate, but nowadays we don't even use it anymore. The correct term to refer to this is polis. Okay? So, if you remember, you can go back to your book in page 218 and 221, where you will find a comparison between the Spartan Society, that is a kingdom that is basically based on all their military power, and the Athens Society, that is a democracy and that is based on their political power and the way to rule and to organize between all the citizens, of course, the privileged citizens. Now, of course, again, we are speaking then about tribes that are becoming states. They become. And how they become states? It is actually very famous in history. When you read historians, like real historians, this moment is very famous when they are speaking about the union between the tribes of the Attic region and the tribes of the Peloponnesian region. So, this is going to be the first moment in which they live, and we don't have a lot of sources about this. Basically, Homer, in his Iliad and Odyssey, he's going to be speaking about this period because this is the period in which the Trojan Wars are happening. This is a period in which people coming from this part here are going to go to war to this part here where we believe that Troy was found. Really, nobody knows where Troy is, but the most supported theory says that in that region of Asia, of Minor Asia. So these societies are going to develop more and more. The Greek societies are going to develop, and we're going to enter classic Greece. And classic Greece is going to be set apart of any other periods of Greece, basically due to two things. The Medic Wars, that is the moment in which the Greeks are going to be fighting the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire, the huge Persian Empire, this goes all the way to India, is going to be crossing through here, that is later going to be becoming the city of Constantinople and the center or the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. They are going to be crossing from here and going all around the Aegean Sea to reach the Greeks and trying to defeat the Greeks. So the Greeks actually unite in order to be able to defeat the the Persians, and they are able to do it. They are really able to do it. And there is, of course, a very famous fight here that is going to be the fight of the 300, in which the Greeks are going to stop the advance of the Persians in the Thermopylae. So as you can see here, this is the Attic region that I was speaking about, where Athens is found. And this is the Peloponnesian region, but we don't have any signal saying so. But here we can know that it is the Attic. This is the Attic region. So that is the first thing, how they are actually defeating the Persians. But the other great thing that is going to happen here, look, these are the Cyclabis Islands. Another thing that is going to happen is the Peloponnesian War. Here you can see the Peloponnesian region. So this actually happened very close in time to each other. If you want to remember, and well, yes, to remember what we read about the Medic Wars, you can go to your book in page 222. Now, the Peloponnesian Wars are going to be the wars in which Greeks are going to fight each other. Remember, always remember this. The Greeks had two great enemies, the Persians and the Greeks themselves. So they were their own worst enemies. So once they defeated the Persian Empire, well, they're going to fight themselves. And we are basically going to have two leagues. We are going to have the Spartan leagues, made up of all the polis in the Green region, here in Macedonia and down here in the Peloponnesian region. And we're going to have the League of Athens that is going to be found in all this red region. All the polis in the red color are going to be allies of Athens. So, what is going to happen? Well, Sparta was great fighting in land, but Athens, was great fighting by sea. So there is really a very big impasse here. Nobody is winning. Why? Because while Sparta is defeating Athens in land, Athens is defeating Sparta in the seas. So, this is going to last for a very long time, and you really are not going to believe this, but the Spartans actually asked for help from the Persian Empire in order to defeat Athens, and they did. However, there is a very big problem here. All these wars, even if Sparta and its allies are able to defeat Athens, really nobody wins these wars. The truth is that nobody wins, because so much fighting is going to leave them weak. Every single polis is going to be weakened by all these years fighting. So there is one state that is going to take advantage of this situation, and that is Macedonia. So now we're going to enter to the Hellenistic period, in which Philip II, King Philip II of Macedonia, here, is going to conquer the other Greek states. Now, King Philip II is no one else but the father of Alexander the Great. So when King Philip II is assassinated, the Greek states believe that Alexander is not going to be strong enough to keep them united, and they think that they're going to recover their freedom. Why? Because Alexander was basically very young. But they didn't expect the reality, and the reality was that Alexander was even a greater ruler than his father was. So he is not only going to be keeping Greece united, but he's going to start a war of conquest all the way to the east. So now he has, remember, this is like a cycle. Now he has defeated one of the worst enemies of the Greeks themselves. So he's going to move to conquer the other great enemy of the Greeks, the Persians. So the Persians have this great empire. It is a huge empire, and they are currently occupying Egypt. So Alexander is going to conquer, and he's going to defeat all the empire of the Persians, and he's going to be moving all the way to India. And in India, he's going to defeat King Porus, that was facing him with 200 war elephants. This was a great battle, and this actually was the last great battle that Alexander fought here in India against King Porus. He won, but after this he fell ill. It is not really clear if he fell ill because of injuries of battle, or if he fell ill because, due to all the heat that they were suffering in India, it is said that they would take frozen baths in order to lower their temperature. And that due to these frozen baths, Alexander is going to catch pneumonia. But really, nothing is sure here. The problem is that Alexander has no children, so there is no one to inherit this great empire. Now, if you want to read again and to remember what we read about Philip and Alexander the Great, you can go to your book in pages 242 and 245. Now, an empire, of course, is a way of a state. However, an empire is a state that is ruling over other states. That is very important. An empire is a state that conquers and rules over other states. Okay? But it is nevertheless a state. Now, what is going to happen then when Alexander dies and he has no heir to leave his empire to? Well, the empire is going to be divided between his generals. And what I want you to pay a lot of attention to, and you already know why, because this is deeply related to Rome, is Egypt. Egypt is going to be left to the general called Ptolemy. And Ptolemy the First, of course, Ptolemy the First, is going to start the lineage of Greek pharaohs. Now, Egypt is no longer Egyptian. Egypt is no longer Persian. Now, Egypt is Greek. And Ptolemy is going to be the first Greek ruler here. So now you have here a picture of Ptolemy being, well, a Macedonian, and now Ptolemy being the pharaoh of Egypt. And I want you to pay attention here. His crown is only showing the snake. So what does that mean? You know this. Remember, the crown showing two animals means that they are ruling the two Egypts, the high and the low Egypt. So if now we can only see the snake, which Egypt is he ruling? Well, of course, the low Egypt, right? You can see it here, obviously. Now, remember that there were 13 Ptolemies, and that Julius Caesar is going to meet the 13th Ptolemy. Yes, so it is not this Ptolemy that here we are seeing here, but the 13th Ptolemy in the line of succession. So 13 pharaohs after this one is going to be the guy that Julius Caesar is going to be facing. So this is it regarding the Greeks. Of course, now we are going to study Greek philosophy and very important things about mythology. So please pause this video, be sure to have your notes complete so that you can deliver your study guide, and please go to the second link in the description so that you can apply a mock exam and see how well you understood these topics. Thank you and see you in a bit.